Morning, Dan and Amy. So the Washington Post is reporting that Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein threatened to quit just a couple weeks after being confirmed and after writing that memo yesterday explaining Comey's dismissal over the White House narrative. By the way, Rosenstein, I don't know if you watch Billions, Amy. Do you watch Billions?
I do not.
He looks kind of like not the Paul Giamatti character.
Mm-hmm.
But there's like a Poindexter who becomes the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District, and he kind of looks like that guy.
He looks like him?
Yeah. I just noticed that. Anyway, the White House narrative was being prosecuted yesterday, but not by Spicy.
No.
He's been sidelined.
He has, and there's a woman named Sarah Huckabee Sanders, 34 years old. She's
a surrogate for the
right.
campaign.
She's trying out for the position, and they asked her, did President Trump direct Rosenstein to write Comey's memo?
Yes or no? Did the president direct Rod Rosenstein to write this memo on James Comey?
No, the president had lost, again, like I said, he'd lost confidence in Director Comey. And frankly, he'd been considering letting Director Comey go since the day he was elected. But he did have a conversation with the Deputy Attorney General on Monday where they had come to him to express their concerns. The president asked that they put those concerns and their recommendation in writing, which is the letter that you guys have received.
Okay, so that was, fair, clearing the air.
It also supports the contention that Susan Collins made, Senator from Maine, essentially that, in terms of the timing of this, you have to understand that Department of Justice personnel have just kind of been put in place at the leadership level. You took a while to confirm Sessions as Attorney General, and then Rosenstein just confirmed by 94-6 vote, oh, by the way, just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and then, so this is her, they trotted her out over the weekend. And it was strange because she had a personal moment at a very important time in our nation's history.
Later in the evening, he also spoke to Senator Bob Corker, chairman of the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations. In addition to all of the big news happening at the White House today, it is also my daughter Scarlett's 5th birthday. And since I'm here and you guys aren't, I get to wish Scarlett a happy birthday. And with that, I think her first birthday wish would probably be that you guys are incredibly nice. And now I will take your questions. Alex.
Ma, I made it! Top of the world!
Hi, Dad. Look, I'm up here behind the lectern. It was very strange.
I'll tell you.
Working mom everywhere has went, what?
Jimmy Cagney's got nothing on Sarah Huckabee Sanders. For more on this, any birthday wishes he has as well, we'll take. We're pleased to be joined by Matthew Whittaker, who's a former U.S. Attorney and Executive Director of the Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust. Mr. Whittaker, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Yep, glad to be with you. And all my family's birthdays are in the fall and winter. So
okay. We'll have you back then. We'll have you back in the fall then. Here's what I'm looking for, and I don't seem to be able to find a Republican or Democrat who, even if they have respect for Jim Comey, will actually defend his performance such that he was improperly dismissed because he performed his job well. I have yet to hear somebody say that.
And you're not going to. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt if you watch the arc of Jim Comey's public performance. And I do think he was a good director in the non-public part of his job. But, between the Hillary Clinton email server fiasco that wasn't, and then, who knows? Everybody was forming against him simultaneously.
Right.
And then, sort of this Russia probe where it just keeps expanding, even though there's really not a lot of there. I think he had a very poor grade. I think he's heading, about halfway through his term. And, I not only did I serve with Jim Comey, Rod Rosenstein and I were U.S. attorneys together. He was in Maryland and I was in Iowa. And so I know Rod, and, it's kind of interesting, I guess, from my perspective, and this is my gratuitous plug here, is that, I had to watch one friend at the DAG position, essentially build a case and fire another friend as the FBI director,
right.
And knowing that the next FBI director is probably going to be somebody that I know well.
Which character on Billions do you look like?
I don't think they have any, big, rugged, former football players that, kind of kick a lot of butt. So
Yeah,
I don't
that's
think
true.
there are any.
Yeah, okay, all right.
All right, so this morning, Jake Tapper on CNN had this exclusive, allegedly, saying that two of his sources said that Comey was let go because, one, he never gave his loyalty to President Trump. He didn't go kiss the ring. And two, that the FBI investigation was accelerating, that Comey had allegedly asked for more resources a week before his firing.
I think it was more. I think the reason that Jim Comey got fired was the bottom line is that as soon as Rod got into DAG, the Deputy Attorney General, and you had Sessions in at AG, FBI does report through that chain of command, and they just lost confidence in Jim, whether he was too independent, whether he was going off the script, whether he wasn't following the tradition and protocols of the Department of Justice. I just think that the key players at DOJ lost confidence in Jim and communicated the same thing to the president. And the president has been all over the board as it related to the FBI director. I mean, he embraced him at one point in time in the White House, and he's also, criticized him off and on through the campaign and into his tenure as president. So, I mean, this is classic Donald Trump, where you sort of it's a day to day, and I would assume that working for him, you just really never know where you stand. I thought one of the things that you guys probably noticed was the gratuitous nature in the termination letter, where President Trump said that Mr. Comey had given him 3 different occasions where he said he wasn't under investigation.
Right. Yeah. That was interesting. Yeah, I really appreciate that on the way out. That was kind of interesting. Now, by the way, just on that that story that was bandied about by the New York Times yesterday, that Comey had requested more money for the Russian probe before he was terminated, that is denied by a spokesman for the Department of Justice. So that the truth of that is in controversy, apparently. As a former U.S. attorney, Matthew, what's the profile of an FBI director that you think would be appropriate, particularly coming in on the heels of all of this, all of the political firestorm?
I think there's 2 different directions they could go, and one direction that I hope they don't go. The direction I hope they don't go is what I would call a celebrity FBI director, somebody that's well known. Chris Christie, who I served with as U.S. attorneys as well, is probably a name that's been on the list that I think would be probably the wrong direction. That being said, you have people that former high-placed Bush officials like Ken Weinstein, who opened up the National Security Division at DOJ, would be probably a frontline pick. And then you have an idea of promoting from within, looking at the various special agents in charge or those running certain divisions within the FBI and promoting them through the ranks. So, I mean, there's a lot of different directions, and as I was talking about earlier, and I'm sure your listeners would agree, this president's a little unpredictable when it comes to his appointments and what type of profile he's looking for.
So would Rudy Giuliani be in the star camp that you speak of?
Yeah, I would say.
He would be a high-profile pick, and I know that they worked really. Rudy was obviously there on the campaign and worked really hard for the president, and I was surprised when they weren't able to find him a slot. He obviously was competing for Secretary of State and Attorney General, and there were good names and people that were picked ahead of him, but he's still, I think, on the sidelines looking for some place and knowing how good of a political operator he is. If he's interested in it, I'm sure he will be on the final list. It's just really, it's going to be an important pick. I heard last night I was on Fox Business, and I heard the other panelists talking about how this is a sort of a critical juncture in our nation's history. I think that's a little too much hyperbole because the FBI director, as long as they're just solid and can run the organization and instill confidence that their investigations are done thoroughly and their conclusions, especially as to what the facts are reliable, I think that's all you're really looking for. And the important work of the FBI is going to continue on no matter who the director is, and the rank and file agents and analysts and all the people that work at the FBI are just great people that I've worked with in the past, and I expect that they'll continue to do an exemplary job in those roles.
He is Matthew Whittaker, former U.S. Attorney and now Executive Director of the Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust. Matthew, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Always enjoy it. Thank you.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.